West Ham against Spurs. 17th.
Do we have to talk about this one?
Janusz, 17th against 16th. I mean, this was something else. Loads of changes for Spurs. West Ham still couldn't win. They go down as well, defending like they've defended. Let's start with West Ham here, because like Man United, there's not much you can say about a Spurs side that had loads of changes ahead of their game against Bodo Glimt on Thursday. Where are West Ham now as we sit after a 1-1 draw at home to Spurs, having been through Lopetegui and having got Graham Potter now, compared to where they were when David Moyes were?
Yeah, you just took it away from me. I was thinking that because, I was one of the people that I remember, I have to confess here, because I remember when they were in Europe, and of course, David Moyes brought him there a couple seasons, right, winning a trophy. I said, well, if West Ham want to push on, they just need somebody else. They need somebody more progressive, somebody that's going to take them to that next level that all West Ham fans want. If you look at, it's a massive club, plays in a big stadium. They sell that stadium out a game, every game and all that. And you just thought that maybe being in Europe, being up there, you just need somebody that takes them there. And unfortunately, Lopetegui didn't do it. And, this is a massive manager, right? Once with Spain and Real Madrid, and Graham Potter right now has taken them down. I mean, you would have thought, there was maybe that initial bounce, if I remember correctly. And now, I mean, look, if it was, you can say that about Spurs, by the way, as well. But if it wasn't for three unbelievably bad teams, I mean, we're talking about some nervousness from West Ham, from Spurs, from Manchester United. Just three teams that came up. They've been horrible throughout the season. Otherwise, I mean, look at West Ham. I mean, once again, they would have been fighting relegation.
When you look at the individuals that they've got, Evan, there's a lot of talent there. There's Kudus, there's Bowen. But you also look at the signing of a 32-year-old Nicholas Füllkrug, who at Werder Bremen was 1 and 2. At his previous club was better than 1 and 3, but it just didn't fit. It was a strange one. And Mikel Antoni obviously had the horror car accident, which is very unfortunate for them. But it's like they didn't address what they need with the actual players that they need to get the best out of the other players. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. And it makes even more sense when you consider the fact that, you should really be highlighting just how good of a manager David Moyes can be when it's at the right club, because he got the best out of what he had and made them very strong, both from a statistical and tactical perspective, but also just, this consistency, this word that we keep talking about. And Lopetegui, as Janusz said, he's obviously a tremendous manager, but it just didn't fit what he had in front of him. And we can say the same thing about Tottenham, by the way, in some ways. And now comes Graham Potter, who, by the way, I've been talking to a few West Ham fans, and the curtain is almost being revealed to them of how much they think that maybe Graham Potter is slightly of an overrated manager here. Obviously, he did some good things at Brighton and stuff, but they're seeing now just how limited maybe the situation has been. I like to be patient and think, well, let's just give him a preseason and see what he can do. But no, West Ham fans, because I have a few friends who are Hammers, and they say to me, no, this is what you're going to get out of Graham Potter, regardless of what happens in the preseason. So there might be a worry for them for next season if they don't start well. And Janusz alluded it to, and I totally agree. Had it not been for Ipswich, Leicester, and Southampton, who truly belong in the Championship, you're talking about your Tottenhams, your West Hams, and even your Manchester Uniteds, who would be like really, really worrying here. Because I'm looking at the table, West Ham 17th, minus goal differential of 19 goals. Like, that's just not good enough. So I'm wondering where the future is going to go with Graham Potter here for the Hammers. It's worrying, because you mentioned they have a lot of talent, but I'm not seeing anything on the pitch.
Okay, Janusz, given what Elame's just said about where they are and their negative goal difference and they're underachieving, if you're Jared Bowen, are you thinking, I love this club, but I need to get out?
Yeah, I suppose there's always going to be a team that's going to look at them. I mean, there's enough there. You have to put it together, right? I mean, you started, I look at that, Füllkrug, remember, I mean, he was a pretty good plan B for Germany, right? He's done okay. He went to Borussia Dortmund. He wasn't Borussia Dortmund type of player anyway, so that was a mistake to begin with, really, although he did okay for them as well. But, there's a team that should service him. That let's not forget that Füllkrug came in injured. It seems like he's missed the entire season. season, hasn't he? So I don't know if we have a go at Fulkrug here, but and Mikel Antonio's been injured. But yeah, if you look at Cresswell, serviceable for somebody like Fulkrug if he was there all the time. Emerson can do that as well, right? Wan-Bissaka, I'm not so sure in terms of going forward. We saw that at Manchester United. We see it here. Kudus should be doing much better. So again, it seems to me a mentality, just as much as you can say that about Spurs, because yet another bigger picture we're going to talk about. But bigger picture, I think there's a lot of nervousness. I would be nervous if I was a fan of Manchester United, even with a 3-0 win. And I would be very, very nervous if I was a fan of Spurs going to Bodo on that artificial pitch where they've done wonders against Lazio. They beat them 2-0. That one goal that they conceded is make it very, very nervous, right? Because it would have been, 3-0 like United. But, when you see team like that, like Manchester United and Spurs in the position that they're in today, even though we're giving them a pass because that is much, much bigger than the Premier League, but yet that mentality that you had the whole season where you've been so bad, I don't know if I bet my house on both Manchester United and Spurs being in the final.
Elemi, I saw you nodding your head there. Janusz did really well to answer about 10 questions there, except for the one that he was asked. Jared Bowen, if you were him, would you be looking for another club, given the talent he has this summer?
His agent is definitely doing that. Jared Bowen is a ridiculous talent. And if he played for another team, like, he would be possibly contending for a starting lineup every single time for the England national team. I think very highly of Jared Bowen. He's one of these players that you don't see every season. He's very unorthodox in the way that he attacked, but at the same time, he's so clutch. His goal today was so calm in between the legs of the goalkeeper. He's just such a good player. And I think his agent straight away is thinking, what are we doing here? You are a very good player, could be one of the best in your position in the Premier League. It's not going to happen with West Ham. So it's really down to his own ambitions. And of course, I feel like West Ham could make some money of it. I don't know. It's going to be an interesting preseason for West Ham, I think, and for the players that you're talking about, because the other one I'm thinking about as well is Lucas Paquetá, who obviously has a lot of issues externally, but he's a ridiculous talent. I mean, he's always in the consideration of starting for Brazil every time he plays. Does he want to move on? We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, Jared Bowen, if I was his representatives, I would be thinking, what are we doing here? Let's think about other clubs.
Janusz, I've done my best on West Ham Spurs, but there were 5 West Ham subs in the last 10 minutes, 1 Spurs sub in the whole game, and they've made so many changes. There's not much to talk about for that one. So let's move on. 1-1 West Ham and Spurs to the final game of the early kickoff. This was an interesting one. Loads of penalties for Newcastle, but only one that actually stood, and they scored from late on through Alexander Isak. That gave them a 1-1 draw at Brighton. If they'd won this, it's pretty much certain that they would get a Champions League spot. Where does that leave them following a come-from-behind draw at Brighton with regards to Champions League qualification for next season?
Yeah, it keeps them in that almighty mess. That is a fight for that. We'll see for how many spots, right? Because now we're going to have to, a lot is going to be answered on Thursday, isn't it? For a lot of these teams, because there may be extra spot for, well, it's not all going to be answered because the final is a little bit later, so I shouldn't say that. But look, I mean, it's a big point. It's a big point. It was a disappointing performance from Newcastle United, especially in that first half. We all know that it's a bit of a bogey team, as Brighton has beaten Newcastle at St. James's, and we know that FA Cup game and that last gasp winner for Brighton, and it almost looked like Newcastle were going to lose for the third time to them. But they found a way in that second half. All 3 decisions, I think, spot on. So we don't, it's unusual to see 3 penalty shouts or 3 penalties called, but I think they were all right. And in the end, they found a way. So, I mean, next for Newcastle, Chelsea home, then Arsenal away, and Everton at home. It's not easy, but I suspect when you look at all the schedules, with Chelsea, not an easy one, LME, even, Villa. I mean, when you look at a trip away to Bournemouth, that hasn't been easy for anybody. So it's going to be fascinating, right? It's going to be absolutely fascinating, and it's impossible to call it. It's going to be game by game, and when you look at the schedule of everybody, it's going to be difficult. But for Newcastle, I suspect that draw, That's a big, big point because they were looking at a loss.
They were indeed up until Isak in the 89th minute. LME, when you're out driving your car and you see the petrol light, the gas light come on, are you like, I'm going to take this down as much as I can get? Or are you like, I'm not even going to let it get there, and you kind of fill it with a quarter full? The reason I ask is because I just wonder if Newcastle are getting to that stage where the light, the gas light, the petrol light has come on, because they're looking a little bit leggy.
Yeah, I'm Peruvian, so I always do the wrong decision. So I'm just going to like keep going until that car dies. It's a good point about Newcastle. And before I answer your question, that point is massive because it goes to 63 points for them, and they have a better goal differential than the teams below them. So that's huge. For them to lose that game, we would have had another conversation, but that point is massive. In order to answer your question, I'm a bit surprised because Newcastle only have this to worry about. They've won the Carabao Cup. Like, it's now, let's get a top 5. And I think if I'm Eddie Howe, definitely for next season, in the summer, I think the biggest objective for Newcastle United is like, boys, we know what we do at St. James's Park. We have the 12th man, the crowd's behind us, we're fully energized, but away from home, it's not good enough. We need to really be more consistent there because they almost seem like a different team when they play away from home. I mean, there's obviously superlatives that we can say for this match. Alexander Isak, of course, 23 Premier League goals this season. That's the most since Alan Shearer back in 2001 and 2002 in a single campaign. That's a remarkable number right there. Obviously, they have the talent, they have the strength, but away from home, you got to do better. But just to go round up to what you asked, you have to go all out here and push everything you have because this is all you have to play for. So getting this point is massive. And that Chelsea game and the Arsenal game and Everton, like Janusz said, is going to be tough. But without that point, I would have been less desired for them. But I think they're going to make it. But they got to be better away from home, I think.
Janusz, could the biggest transfer dealings in the summer be Newcastle either offering Isak a new contract or turning down bids and making sure that when the transfer window closes at the end of August, start of September, that he is still a Newcastle player?
Yeah, I think they've got to keep him, right? They got to build. I mean, this Newcastle team, yeah, I mean, they have some issues, right? I mean, away from home, they seem to have similar issues to what Villa is having right now, dealing with these competition. Maybe the lack of know-how in how to do that, right? I think that this Newcastle team is pretty deep. I think they have game changers. We even saw Anthony Gordon, who's been out for a little bit, coming in and making a difference. I think if you get a healthy season out of him, you obviously, Tonali may be the one that's going to be difficult to keep. I have a feeling, but obviously he's a game changer. You look at Isak, look at Guimaraes, defensively pretty decent team, and they can be if healthy. So look, I think if Newcastle make the Champions League, and I do think they will make it ultimately, I think you continue to build on that, make that team even stronger, and make the competition within the team even much bigger. Look, I mean, yeah, can they afford to lose Isak? I think not. They certainly can't afford to lose both Tonali and Isak. They'd be shooting themselves in the foot, I think, and it'd be right back to square one in so many ways. It'd be a quick exit probably out of the Champions League, and they won't be competitive for the Premier League title as well. So I wouldn't.
Up until the 89th minute, LME, you saw Brighton in the live league table in 8th. There's Bournemouth, there's Brentford, there's Brighton, and there's Fulham. Now, Bournemouth have a reasonable goal difference of +13, which is the best out of the 3 Bs. Brentford is +9, and Brighton's only +1. What are Brighton? They're so good with Tony Bloom and his Jamestown analytics at bringing in players and selling them on for a profit and replacing them with someone equally as talented. But can you keep doing that while challenging for more than a Conference League 8th place finish? Or is a top 10 finish an achievement every season for Brighton? What is this football club?
Yeah, it's a good question. Brighton is a project that I've said for a while, and obviously I'm not alone. I know that you agree. It's a great project, as you mentioned. They do such a good job at discovering talent, moving on from them, and then rotating, recycling once again. But there is a difference between being a really good, successful club that handles the books well and tries to get those 9, 8, perhaps 7th place in the Premier League, and then the difference between that and getting a Champions League spot. And unfortunately, we live in a day and age where money talks, huge money talks. And, obviously Nottingham Forest is an anomaly, but, when you look at those that qualify for the Champions League, it's because big money has been spent. Now, Brighton did do that this past summer. They spent the most money they've ever spent. But now it's about, you need to now do it even more so and wisely, because I think that Brighton, they need like clinical star finishers. In fact, Brighton had a great opportunity to win this game today. The Paraguayan Diego Gomez, who came from Inter Miami, he had an open header and he missed it. So my point is like this summer now, what is your next move there? Are you going to try and, because, is Garo Mitoma going to stay at Brighton this whole time? Because I know he has a lot of suitors. Can Minta become a consistent person that can score more on goals? So there's a big gap and a difference between being those teams that finish in the top 10 and those that want to make the Champions League. But as a club and what you do in terms of your culture, running the books, scouting, tremendous. And it's a great example for many clubs. It's just that if you want to be in the Champions League, unfortunately, money talks.
Yeah.
Somebody they bought, Janusz, was Yankuba Minta from Newcastle. Never played a minute for them, yet didn't celebrate because it was his former club. Really?
Yeah, but Mark, just thinking, the irony of it all is that as good a season as they're having, right? You look at Brentford, you look at Bournemouth, even Fulham to a degree, and Brighton. If you can't do it now when you have the likes of Spurs and Manchester United and even West Ham where they are, you're never going to do it. That's their spot. It'll never change. This was the time to do it, right? Just like it was with Forest. We've been saying for all this time, right, that they've never had a bad spell, and they've picked the wrong time to have a bad spell right now because they may fall out of this right now. So I just think that when you see them, we got to appreciate them. But this is where they belong. Even Crystal Palace, think about it. Over the years, they've had these great goal scorers. They've had these players. Look at now. I mean, even with Eze, Mateta, and Sarr. I mean, they seem like they're doing well. And look where they are, 12 spots. So I think there's a limit. They've hit it. They've hit that limit ceiling. It's that 8, 9, 10 spot is the best they can hope for. When all things fall into place, I have a feeling, because as you said, money talks, and we all know that the United and Spurs and West Hams eventually are going to get back into it.
Brentford beat Manchester United by 4-3. Brighton drawing 1-1 at home, and West Ham drawing 1-1 with Spurs. So Newcastle take another step towards the Champions League next season. That battle for the prestigious Conference League playoff spot continues in the middle of the Premier League table. The three of us shall be back live on the full-time whistle for Chelsea against Liverpool. A few changes for Liverpool, but Salah, Trent, and Virgil all start. Full reaction to come at full time from Stamford Bridge. Bye for now.